Lace has dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's April 23rd. It's a Thursday. It's not a tactical Thursday on the show this morning. It will be at 4 o'clock this afternoon when Stephen Glass joins us for a watch-along. Atlanta United 2, Tampa Bay Rowdies in St. Petersburg, Florida from last season. Glassy's going to walk us through kind of his thought process watching the match, things he's noticing, maybe things he's telling players, especially things he's going to tell players after watching a match back. So it'll be kind of a video room with the manager on this one. Really looking forward to it. 4 o'clock, twitch.tv/soccerdown here. You can watch along Atlanta United 2 and the Rowdies from last year with us. This morning, not a tactical Thursday, it's a news Thursday because, man, there's a lot of things popping off. Some rumor, some innuendo, but also announcements and press conferences being held right now, one in Germany, and we'll update you on that. But maybe most importantly in the SDH universe, John Nelson has news because he has actually, finally, I saw a picture of it, gotten Mountain Dew for the first time in like 4 days.
Check. Here's a glorious noise to start the show. But I have a codicil to that particular noise.
But? Do you get Mountain Dew and there's a but?
There's a but.
Oh, no.
All right, so yesterday when I was out doing my 2 miles, took a mile of that and went to the store that's a half a mile away.
Good job, you listened. I'm very happy.
So I go to the store that's a half a mile away because, when you go and you're out walking, there's only so much that you can buy and carry back home.
Well, of course, but a Mountain Dew you could handle.
Yeah, so. And that's what happened. I double bagged and walked it back the half mile. So knowing that Office, that Office HD is somewhat still deficient in mass quantities of said drink, we placed the order with another local establishment to get groceries and stock up, like we do once a week.
Your reluctance to mention local establishments is funny.
Ain't sponsoring us.
Okay. I don't think they're coming after us for saying them either.
But this one particular grocery store chain, when they don't have what you want, instead of not giving it to you, they substitute their generic brand.
Oh, that's not cool.
Yeah.
No, that is not okay.
So this is the Arkansas-based grocery store chain that is like...
That is not okay because some of those generics are awful.
Yes. So as of, when the boss comes back with this particular shipment, I may hit the wall because of what this particular mart has decided to do. And... yeah, she told me, they're going to come in with the generic, and, it could be one of the tallest mountains with lightning on a day like this that we get, and that is a no bueno for me.
That is really no good.
But we have enlisted the aid of other stores to fill in the gaps with things that that particular Arkansas-based chain did not have, and so there's going to be multiple shopping trips to take care of Diet Coke and Diet Dr. Pepper and Diet A&W and Mountain Dew. But yes, this first stop for the boss today, she's bringing home the generic because they're not allowing drops and that's their swaps.
One, that's just bad form, and I will now know not to do shopping lists from this place because I don't want substituted generic brand stuff from them.
Nope.
There's very few substitute generic brand colas that I will have any which way, and that's not the one I would have. So That's a no. I won't do
That's
that.
a no. Nope.
I was really close yesterday because I was out and getting things that I needed. I was really close to stopping and getting Mountain Dew and dropping it off on your driveway and then saying, hey, go out to your driveway. And I'd be gone. And there'd be just Mountain Dew sitting there. It was really close. But
Christmas.
Then you posted the picture of actually acquiring the drink. So
it would have been Christmas.
I figured you were good.
Well, I was temporarily good. And for the sake of the social experiment, I will open one of those particular 2 liters or whatever size they're going to give you.
Yeah.
Just to taste it and see
I
what
haven't had
it's like.
it. Yeah, so I mean, I'm skeptical, but it could be okay. What do they call their version?
Mountain Lightning.
Mountain Lightning? Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it is. Pretty much.
That's horrible. Oh, no. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, have fun with that when that happens.
That'd be a nope. That's a hard no for me.
You never know. I mean, the name's horrible, but you never know. The since we're talking about where these places are stationed, I think the company that is from Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound right for a grocery store chain?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think they're from Cincinnati. They have a generic that I actually will have. I don't remember what they call it. It's not the...
Isn't it
Mountain Dew
big
generic.
and then their first letter?
Yeah, but their and I don't like their generic cola. Their generic... I don't think it's the Mountain Dew one. I can't remember which one it is. It's not bad.
All right.
It's not bad. I don't remember what they call it. It's been a long time since I've had it. I generally go for the 1 liter Coca-Cola or Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
The 1 liter, not the 2 liter.
Yeah, I mean, usually for me when I'm shopping in these situations, I legitimately am looking at...
You're looking for the 3 liter.
Damn right. But you know what? When we went to Herediano last year...
You took a 3 liter Mountain Dew to Costa Rica?
No.
Okay.
The particular... The Arkansas-based grocery chain actually had a branch about a mile away from our hotel.
Yeah.
And so we go shopping there, and they actually had 3 liter Pepsi products in this particular branch of that store chain.
Nice.
Did not have Mountain Dew, but they had 3 liter Pepsi.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not good.
No, but still,
liters
just on
Pepsi.
premise, though, I didn't know that the 3 liter existed. But late in the trip, it was good to have, soda of that same vein from the company, even though it was not Mountain Dew. Although I did smuggle some in the luggage to both the Herediano match and to the Club America match. I actually did have... Seriously.
John's that guy who holds everybody up at the security because he's got drinks in his bag.
Yeah. I brought a 2 liter of Mountain Dew into Mexico City.
That's kind of disturbing. On a lot of accounts. Your account, the security account, all of the accounts.
But I also did bring in crackers and snacks and things also, not knowing what the grocery store layout was going to be close to the hotel for the Club America match too. So it came in handy, let's put it that way.
Okay, I flipped it over to, because the show's already off the rails, I flipped it over to Teise to see if they were having a news program, and they're not. They're having one of their hours of the 10x10, the 10 hours of Diego Maradona
of course.
footage. They're popping that on. And they had one that I'd never seen before. So it's a volleyball match. It's an exhibition or whatever. It's from 1995. And they bring Diego out, and he's setting players to spike in their pre-game routine
With his feet?
with his thigh, with his head, with his feet. Doesn't matter.
Great.
And they're perfect. And they're
great.
perfect. It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like that.
But I also wasn't yesterday the 31st anniversary of Life is Life.
Yeah. Yeah, the greatest pre-match warm-up ever. That was it. That would have been the first viral moment if we had viral moments in that time. We didn't.
Yep.
We do now. It's still viral because it's that good.
You want to get into news of the day?
Yeah, let me start here real quick because our friend Derek Ray is live tweeting the briefing from the Bundesliga.
Yes, he's been busy.
Christian Seifert, who is the head of the Bundesliga, and I believe all the divisions of German professional football, he said, what remains decisive for us is what the politicians decide. If it's 9 May, then we would be ready then. If it's later, we would be ready on that date. There are many reasons to criticize or even reject it on emotional grounds or because it just doesn't feel right. Now, he said on the possible suspension of the season, he said, in this case, the Bundesliga would become collateral damage of the coronavirus. I cannot have this as my goal. Maximum of 213 personnel in the stadium, 109 outside. He said that if the situation with the pandemic worsens as well as the testing capacity in Germany worsens, the league would, quote, stop testing and stop playing. Now, one other thing that has come out this morning is Solidarity Fund has been announced, and this is in Germany, but UEFA's got an announcement too. 7.5 million euro from Champions League representatives to be distributed among 19 clubs in the third division in Germany and 6 women's top division clubs. Exceptions on the women's side are those with parent clubs in the Bundesliga. 300,000 euro each. So that's a really important thing, and that's the first time I've heard that specifically, that a league is doing something to support its lower divisions. Germany is sending money from their Champions League revenues from Bundesliga teams to the third division teams, 19 of them, and women's clubs who don't have parent clubs in the Bundesliga. That's a big statement that Germany has made with this. UEFA has also announced that they are starting to distribute the funds that go out from players who play in Euro qualifiers. Like, teams get a payment when a player is away and plays with their national team in a Euro qualifier. Even though it hasn't been completed, they are sending that money out now to try to help. And for some, it'll add up to a pretty good amount. For others, it'll be small. But they're sending that money out now before the qualification process has been officially completed.
Yeah, I had heard about the 322 number that had been sent out by the Bundesliga for essential personnel on a match day. So the fact that is now being put out there in official circles, and that Derek is keeping an eye on the meeting this morning. So at least we now have some kind of a baseline. I don't know if the Bundesliga number of 322 for essential personnel translates to the Premier League, but at least we now have a baseline idea.
Yeah, and a lot of it is going to be wait and see, of course, with timelines and stuff. But now that we're starting to see the money side of it become a bigger issue, and, in Germany they've been upfront about some of the issues that they are facing, we're starting to get more of the actual logistics in plans. And we retweeted this, and I wanted to talk about it. Switzerland has put out their plan, their concept. It's 36 pages of how they safely want to resume playing football in Switzerland. It's really detailed, which I think is important, and it gives us a little bit of a glimpse as to how this could look anywhere. So there's a couple different options on the timing. It's not critical, but it really revolves around how much time would see small groups, no physical contact in training, or larger groups, normal contact in training, and then when the league would resume. It's either going to resume May 20 or May 30. Those are the ideas. In either case, there's 13 matches left in the league, cup rounds, 2 relegation playoffs. They want to play all of that by August 2nd. That's their date to be done by. training precautions, they are not looking at, and I believe Germany is doing the same, they are not looking at isolating people involved. So they're not going to do the basically like the quarantine, the bubble for these guys. They're going to live their normal lives. The club would have a list of employees whose presence is required as essential. Nobody else is allowed access to the training facilities. Of course, all the sanitizer and cleaning and all of that would be done. About kitchen, about physio, about laundry, all that stuff would be done. They wouldn't want players to use public transport to training, only car or bicycle. It is Switzerland. It's kind of small. It's a little bit easier to do that. I don't know if I want to bike home after training, but that's just me. No. If that's not possible, they would use buses to transport players. They don't want players on public transit. That's an important part of this. Okay, so before they meet for any size of group training, whether it's small group or large, everybody has to be tested for COVID-19. From then on, everyone should be tested again at least every 2 weeks. Now, group training, it'd be a maximum of 5 players per session to start. The teams would prepare everything for the players, their boots, their equipment, their water bottle, all that would be set up for them when they arrive. All that would be left there when they're done. It's pretty well thought out how you would do it. In addition to the players, these are the first part of the training sessions, the small groups. 5 players, 3 coaching staff, physio, kit man, warehouse staff, cleaning, 3 or 4 people, a doctor, and a maintenance person. So that's, down to detail of how many people would be on site for each of these.
Like 24-ish.
Not even. So 5 players, and then let's say you max it out on the cleaning staff, 12, so 17 is what you're looking at. 16 or 17 people. Of course, all the cleaning is a huge part of it. And anyone entering the facility must wear freshly washed clothes, disinfect their hands. 2 players max to use the physio or gym facilities. It's pretty down to the detail here. The food is precisely regulated according to this. Each player receives a bag of nutritional supplements and his name for each meal. And you have to eat by yourself. That's where they're at with us. The games behind closed doors, and this is probably where a lot of people are interested in how people are going to do these. So, obviously no kids coming out with the teams. This is some of the weird stuff to me, like no hugging, clapping, or shaking hands before kickoff. Okay, but you're going to be running into people, and you're going to be, probably sweating on somebody at some point. So does that really make a difference?
Yeah, there's going to be contact of varying degrees, but there is going to be contact.
I never really bought that idea, but that's just me. Celebrating with teammates after a goal is not encouraged. Same thing. It's kind of like, does it really make a difference at that point if you're going to play? If it's not safe enough to do that stuff, should you even be playing?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like they go together to me, but again, that's just me. 200 people inside the stadium for the first division games, 140 for others, and that's not fans. That's, staffing. That's the players, that's the staff, that's the referees, that's the match supervisor, that's a referee supervisor, that's the game manager, that's a safety officer, that's ball kids, stewards in the stadium. I don't exactly know why they're necessary or what they would do, but not sure. Grounds people,
go chase the ball if it goes into the stands, I guess.
I guess. Doping control, medics, 4 medics, 3 stadium control, 2 fire/police, 2 caterers, 2 cleaning personnel, 33 TV production staff, 20 editors for SRF and Teleclub. I'm not sure exactly what that is in the Swiss League. And 17 journalists. So that's down to the number specifically of what they would allow in the stadium for this. They would divide the stadium up into 4 areas to keep people separate. All the players, the referees, the TV production employees would have to be tested on match day, or I guess right before match day, to be allowed to work it.
Yeah, as you're going into the building at the gut crew call.
Yeah, that would make sense. The idea would be that all games could be played in a single stadium with 2 games on Saturday, 3 games on a Sunday. It's a 10-team league. That would reduce logistical costs, ensure no dependency on regional restrictions. Again, Switzerland's a very small country, so it's easy to do that. That's their plan. There's a lot of it that makes sense, but kind of my antenna go up with the whole idea of not shaking hands with your opponents before the game and not celebrating goals with your teammates. That feels out of place if you're doing all the other things to play.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't feel like it makes a whole lot of sense. So maybe it's just overly cautious, and if that's the case, that's fine. But if you're playing, you're playing. And if you're playing, everybody on the field is at risk, because when you play, you're breathing hard, you're probably... you're obviously sweating everywhere, and I don't know about the transmission of this through sweat, but when you're yelling and when you're breathing hard, those, particles, droplets get into the air, that kind of stuff. It's going to happen whether you shake somebody's hand before the game or not.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to avoid. So, I don't know. There's a lot that makes sense, though, and there's a lot of detail to it, and that kind of gives you a glimpse of what things could look like when you get back to action.
Yeah. And, for me, looking at that number that the Bundesliga has put out and the most basic personnel that you could have with a little depth and redundancy built in, and I guess that's where the stewards would come in for the ball boys and that kind of stuff. But the fact that you come up with a 36-page plan means that you're not taking anything for granted, that you want to bring athletics back, but at the same time you're going to have as much care into the whole process as possible. But yeah, when you mentioned they're saying, well, don't do this, but at the same time you're going to have contact with this. I understand erring on the side of caution and laying it out that way, but it seems like it's a little out there, putting some contact in, don't do this, but at the same time assuming that certain contact may or may not be around. But yeah, I know the fact that you came up with a 36-page plan, fantastic.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. It gives you a little more detail on how this is going to go, and it can be vetted by public health officials and get best practices going, which is a very important part of this, because we don't have best practices for something like this. We don't know what something like this really is. We're all figuring it out as we go. So this will help with that process.
UEFA has come out with news this morning after a meeting. A crunch meeting, according to the Daily Mail, to decide the fate of the season, decided that if leagues don't finish, qualification for Champions League and Europa League should be decided on sporting merit.
Yeah. Dale Johnson at ESPN went into a little more detail on this. It's not necessarily just points per game. Leagues are considering a lot of different ways to do that. What that looks like, I don't know. People have asked, well, what could you do? You could go back to the last complete round. So maybe we'd go back a week or two in some leagues, depending on games in hand and such. You could go from the halfway stage if you're set up a certain way, like where you play the double round robin, but you play them incomplete. So you play everybody once, then you play everybody a second time. It's not jumbled up. You could do that. Points per game is probably the most likely in most places, but what this does is it opens up that door for the crazy conversation we had about Spain, which the question there would be, like, how do you say that a team that is not in a Champions League spot would get a Champions League spot on sporting merit? Like, that seems to be a slippery slope that could open up some chaos. Spain, remember, there was a proposal out there, or at least a report out there, that Atletico Madrid would get a Champions League spot, even though they are in 6th right now.
Right.
And the top 4 go. And they're not level on points with 4 and 5. That's a tie. They're a point behind that. But somehow they would jump 4 and 5 because they've been good in the Champions League and they're in the quarterfinals of the Champions League right now.
Ben Nagel at the Daily Mail has a scenario for Britain. He says, off of points per game ratio, according to the Times, Champions League spots would go to Liverpool, Manchester City, Leicester, and Chelsea. Mm-hmm. UEFA's decision would see Manchester United and Sheffield United take the Europa League places. Arsenal and Tottenham would miss out on European football entirely if the current Premier League season is unable to be completed.
Yep. I mean, that's the possibility. And then you start to see, okay, if that door is now cracked open, are you going to hear more from Arsenal, from Tottenham, from other clubs who would miss out on European football entirely next year and say, well, wait a minute, we want to finish the season? Like, is this going to change some of the conversation around it? It could. It very well could.
But then you have the discussion with Manchester City still hanging around.
Yeah, and that's a whole different thing. That has nothing to do with this. All this is about is finishing the league season and determining who qualifies. Manchester City is in trouble in a separate situation altogether that could pull them out of it.
Yeah, and then that would put Wolves into the discussion, still leaving Arsenal and Tottenham out. Arsenal would be out by 5/100ths of a point in the discussion. So, welcome to the discussions of the future.
Yep. I mean, that's the stuff that's going to be a mess.
There's a guy that is in charge of a franchise, or partly in charge of a franchise, down in Miami. Still haven't played a home game, but they are a part of MLS. And it appears that they may be chasing after a particular individual to be a part of their roster.
Who are they chasing after to be part of their roster?
Some guy named Hamas.
Okay.
David Beckham in talks. This is from Goal.com. David Beckham in talks with Real Madrid to bring James Rodriguez to Inter Miami.
Okay. That has been something I've said, I think, from day one with Miami, since they got day one of actually, preparing for a season.
Yes.
And if you go back, and this is why John is so salty about Miami, if you go back, they were actually announced before Atlanta was. If you go back and watch the Atlanta announcement when they were brought into MLS, they were announced as the 22nd team. The 21st team was Miami. But they took a while, and there was a lot of reasons for that. But once it got real and it's, okay, they're going to play games and they're going to be in the league, Hamas was the one that I thought they should have really gone after. Mm-hmm. But also, around that time, it got harder to get him because of cost and because of going out on loan. And it looked like he was going to be good in Germany. Well, it didn't work out. Real Madrid wants to move on. He's on a big salary. They want to move on. I think he's going into the last year of his contract. If they can get really much of anything, I think in return, they would take it. Because I don't think he's factoring into their plans. It would make a lot of sense for Miami. It still does. I mean, The question is going to be, does Hamas want to make that jump, or does he want to chase another European club? And that's going to be the decision. And that's just where MLS is right now. Long term, MLS wants to get to a point where there's not much of a decision, and Hamas in his situation says, I want to go to MLS because that would be a good place for me. I could get back into the Colombian national team. I could be playing regularly. I'd be closer to Colombia for World Cup qualifiers. It would be a good situation all the way around. Football's good. Money's good. This is where I want to be. It's not quite there yet. For a player like Hamas, he might think he still has big European clubs that could go after him. But is there going to be a better situation than what he could have at Miami? I don't know. I don't know if there is right now. And that's the struggle here. Coming out of this, when that time comes that you could actually make a move like that happen, I mean, technically you could right now because the transfer window in MLS is open. When you could make a move like that, we just don't know where the game's going to be. We don't know where the possibilities are going to be for Hamas. So I'm intrigued by this. I thought it made sense a long time ago. I think it still makes sense, but does it make sense for James Rodriguez? That's the question.
From Goal, it's understood that Real Madrid president Florentino Perez is willing to negotiate for Hamas, keeping the door open for the sale of a player barely featured. This is the article's words, barely featured under the stewardship of Zinedine Zidane. Mm-hmm. And what he would be lost on a free next season. Mm-hmm. So that's why this window is here. And Beckham considers the 28-year-old to be a great footballer. Despite his struggles at Madrid, sees him as the big-ticket signing required to take his fledgling MLS side to the next level in terms of commercialization.
Yep. That sounds familiar.
Uh-huh.
That sounds very familiar.
Beckham's entourage have begun informal talks with Hamas's people, and while there is still no firm offer on the table, from Goal, it must be stressed that the Colombian will enter the final year of his contract in the summer, and Perez will be reluctant to let him leave for free.
Well, that's negotiating. I mean, of course he doesn't want to let him go for free, but will he let him go for a little bit more than free?
Yeah,
it's very possible.
Yes,
it's very, very possible.
Yep, saw that article come across multiple places and was like, "Yep, that's going on the rundown."
Yep, James Rodriguez potentially to MLS. I'd like to see it.
Yes. And I think that'd be fantastic to see a player like that be that cornerstone for a franchise like an Inter Miami. I think that would be really cool. Let's see. We have some lower league stuff. We have Pochettino and Newcastle news. We have Wayne Rooney news.
Okay, what's going on with Pochettino and Newcastle? Let's start there.
Okay. Apparently, Pochettino is now the number one target, but if Pochettino signs after May, then Tottenham loses out on getting any kind of money in return for Pochettino getting a new job.
Well, he's not going to sign before May because they haven't even finished the current season yet. The ownership hasn't even gone through. So, sorry, Tottenham. They'll wait that one out.
Yes. So that's that is the news where Pochettino is concerned. He apparently is number one in the barn right now.
All right. Well, we'll see if that happens. Who is reporting that he is number one in the barn?
Multiple papers. It starts with the Sun and the Daily Mail and works its way from there.
Okay. So maybe we'll see, but they still have to get the deal done. And it's a lot of the conversation about the purchase of Newcastle is coming back to the issues that Amnesty International and BN have pointed out. I keep going back to the fact that I don't know if the Premier League is truly in a place to be able to say anything about the Amnesty International side of it. Not with some of the other owners that they already have in the league. The pirating of TV, in my opinion, is the bigger potential hurdle for them. If they're able to actually prove connections there between this ownership group and that happening, because that's affecting the bank accounts of fellow owners.
Yeah.
And I've already seen people, saying like, oh, well, they would be worried about money, but they wouldn't be worried about human rights. The problem is that where do you draw the line on the human rights side because of some of the other owners you already have?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the part that gets left out of this when I've seen it reported. If you're going to draw it here, why hasn't it been, brought up in other cases or brought up in this way in other cases? That's going to be the argument. And that's going to be an ugly situation. All the way around.
It is. Yeah, the pirating right now, it's was it a 3-year deal that BN has currently, I want to say, for £400 million. And they have been complaining about the alleged Saudi piracy of one of the Saudi channels. So
I mean, that's the problem is that it's alleged, and everything is alleged right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's enough concrete information to go on, and I don't know if there's going to be enough to stop the deal from happening.
Right.
I don't know if there's going to be enough concrete information to really stop the deal from happening.
Yeah. Daily Express, going back to Pochettino quickly, it's the Pochettino, one of the three, and we had mentioned Rafa Benitez as one of the others. And if the Daily Express would actually scroll down the way it's supposed to, instead of locking up on my computer, I could tell you what the Daily Express has for the updated three candidates. But Pochettino is one of the three, and everybody's kind of looking at Steve Bruce as dead man walking, even though they haven't finished the season yet.
Yeah, I mean, again, my guess is he would finish the season, and you've had Pochettino, you had Allegri, you had Rafa Benitez as the three possibilities that had been mentioned before. Pochettino is the most interesting to me. He's also maybe the biggest risk. Rafa could be the best solution for Newcastle because of the history there.
Yes.
And that might actually help the situation, and I think as well the fans, I think, would rally behind it.
No doubt.
So I'm kind of leaning for me, Pochettino's who I would like to see because I want to see him in a job like that. But Rafa might be the best call for Newcastle to make.
Yeah, so that to me would be I'm leaning toward Rafa, and just because of the history and having somebody there that the fans absolutely would rally behind to bring it all together with the new ownership group, no doubt.
Yeah, that's where my head's up.
Yep. Let's see. Wayne Rooney. We could talk about our buddy Wayne Rooney real quick.
What's Wayne Rooney up to?
Apparently, he is the individual at Derby County who seems to be leading the charge not to right now take a 50% pay reduction for all of the players at Derby County.
So Derby County has come to the players and said that they want them to take a 50% pay cut.
Mm-hmm. But they would get it back once everything is back to normal.
They would get their wages that they have had cut back, or they would go back to their normal contracted amount when everything's back to normal.
I have to look that up, but the wording was that they would get it back, but I have to make sure that that one of those two is the properly worded phrase.
This is the stuff. I hate that there's not enough detail in these things because that's a big difference. If you're going to have 50% of your pay deferred and you'll get it later for sure, okay. If you're going to have it cut and you're just going to go back to your normal amount later, that's a very different conversation. It's an incredibly different conversation. So
yes.
These are things that I hope get reported a little more clearly because it's an important part of this. As we've said with all of it, I understand players wanting to make every dollar that they are contracted to make, and they're within their rights to do it. The problem is going to be that teams aren't going to be able to pay them. That's going to happen too. That's the other side of this, that it's going to become a reality, honestly, I think in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
For some clubs. For some clubs, you're going to hit the end of the month and you are not going to be able to pay people, period. And that's something that has to be understood. And either the clubs need to, make that clear to players. And if they have and players aren't buying in, I don't know what else you can do. Because what it's going to turn into is just, well, yeah, we're contracted to pay you this amount, and we can't pay you. So we are going into administration or bankruptcy or insolvency or whatever it is in the given country because we don't have enough money to pay people. And that is going to happen sooner rather than later for a lot of clubs. Because, yes, it's 100% true. There's a lot of clubs that have not been run very well from a business perspective. Also, those clubs were expecting to have gate revenues, in the millions of dollars by now, and also all the TV payments, or not having to look at giving TV money back. So, even clubs that were run poorly would have been in a position to be able to pay people if this hadn't happened, and now they're not going to be in that position. That's going to happen. We have to stop putting that off as, no, that's not a possibility, or just not even talking about it. Like, sure, Darby County players don't want to give up money. I understand that. What could happen, though, is Darby County might not be able to pay anybody. Players, staff, anybody. And then you're going to give up the money because you're not going to get it because they're going to be in administration, bankrupt, whatever. That's a distinct probability. I don't know about Darby specifically, but for clubs, that is going to happen. I think we're past the point of maybe, well, if, and that is going to happen. And that's something that the game has to be prepared for and has to figure out. The other element of it, we keep going back to what the plan is going to be. It seems like a lot of leagues are still strong on wanting to finish, but UEFA's opened up the door for teams not to finish. I don't know the financial ramifications across the board, and this is something that I really am anxious to see reported in detail, if it can be, because from what we know, it would be better off financially in the long term to finish the season as it is. I don't know, because I've seen Dale Johnson at ESPN, I've seen others mention it. I don't know if they say, okay, we're not going to finish the season, we'll start the next season when we start the next season. I don't know if that saves money. I mean, I don't know if that saves you money on a player contract, because I don't know how they're structured. I don't know if they're structured for a certain number of games played for a certain period of time or what, if you can just stop paying them. No idea. Like, it's not going to allow you to go out into the transfer market and sell players because nothing is consistent across the board. You are going to open up the possibility of having to either renegotiate at a minimum TV money, sponsorship money, or you're going to have to give money back. I don't know what the financial advantage would be to calling the season now, because it's not going to allow you to start the next season any sooner. Like, the next season starting, it's still up to what happens with the virus. Period. We don't know when that's going to be. We don't know when the current season could restart. Some could start in May, some might be June, some might be July, some might be August, some might start and have to stop. We don't know. So I don't know what the better route is now that you're getting to the point that, if Darby County's wanting to cut players 50% of their pay, that's significant. That should tell you that this is a huge financial issue. So if they can or can't do that, they're not in a situation to ride this out a whole lot longer. Are they going to be better off if you call the season now and they have to give back TV money, give back sponsorship money, but save what? That's the part I don't know.
It's operations revenue and day-to-day revenue, and
but I mean,
personnel.
Anyway. And like you're acting like you're in an off season right now anyway. It's not like you're not paying game day staff. You're not paying those people. The people you're paying are people who are on your payroll 12 months a year.
right? You're missing out on the game day revenue from however many.
No, you're missing. We know that. That's not the issue. I'm not talking about that. We know what you're missing. I'm talking about people are saying that you should stop the season now because it's better financially. You'd save costs. I don't know what you're saving. I don't understand what it would be from a financial perspective that you would save, that you would benefit by stopping the season now. I don't know what it would be, and I don't think you're getting any of the potential gains of being able to sell players.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's going to come down to. And that's where this market gets really screwy, because you're going to have a lot of clubs that the only way for them to try to make up some of their losses is to sell players.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have a lot of clubs that are not going to be in a position to buy players. You're going to have some who are, and they're going to have their pick. But you're going to have a lot who aren't. So I don't even know if that makes up for it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that in all of the discussions that we've had about it, we've pretty much figured out every piece of revenue that's attached to any kind of a franchise. And if you're saying stop it now, like literally, turn the spigot off, no more water into the sink, what are you stopping that hasn't already been stopped?
What are you stopping from an expenses standpoint? That's the key. That's where we're at. Is you have to start looking at the bottom line for some of these clubs. If you say stop the current season now, what does that actually do on the expenses part of your budgeting, on your payments? What does that do for you? What does it open up in terms of potential payments? Because what I've said all along, if you're doing that because you want to deliver prize money, leagues can deliver the minimum amount of prize money right now. There is nothing stopping them. If it's a bylaw, you can pass a bylaw change. If it's a league president has to make a decree, make a freaking decree. You could give out the minimum prize money right now if you wanted to, or you would find a way to legally be able to do it, to say everybody gets the last place amount of money today. It's in your account. Here you go. And you figure the rest out when you can finish.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to stop the season to do that, I don't think. If you do, then change the rules.
Yes.
It's much easier to change the rules than to do the rest of it. I don't know. I mean, that's all I got. Like, I can't figure out what else you would gain by not finishing the season right now and stopping it. I don't think you stop any of the expenses that are already there. You know, those questions are already being figured out. Like, are you able to cut staff? Are you able to furlough staff? Are they able to take advantage of whatever government programs there are to get money in the interim? Like, what are you going to be able to do? That's where clubs are at this point. And that's where what clubs in Europe are at, and it's a scary time. 50% cut. Look, I understand it from the player side. They don't want to give that up. They need to make money too, but you're getting closer to a point where clubs just can't pay.
Exactly.
And some clubs probably can't already, and are probably already looking at that.
We've talked about it in the past that 10 of the 24 teams currently in the Sky Bet Championship are in some kind of financial distress. And I'll put those two words in quotes. Derby County was mentioned as one of them. Mokbel and Kajumba's article about Derby County specifically. Wayne Rooney, it is a 50% wage deferral. Rooney informed Chief Executive Officer Stephen Pierce that the squad are only willing to take a 25% deferral. And Rooney, it is understood, has spoken directly to PFA Chief Gordon Taylor in his role as players delegate. He has also set up a players WhatsApp group to keep teammates informed of developments. Players want Derby to share their accounts so they can make a fully informed decision regarding the club's proposed wage reduction.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, and this is going back to way before any of this happened. Players don't trust clubs. They don't trust the financials. And clubs don't want to share their financials with the players. We see it in American sports all the time. It's when you're going into a CBA negotiation, what do the commissioners always say? We're losing money. We're losing a bunch of money. We're losing money. We're not making as much money as you think, et cetera, et cetera. And are the books really showing that? We don't know because we're not seeing them because they're private books. They're private companies. I don't know if the players will get that. I don't know if they'll really get that. But at some point, I mean, you just got to use some common sense. At some point, you've literally just got to show some common sense here. If you're on the player side, you're not. There's no way you can expect that Darby County is making the amount of money that they were making before. There's no way you can expect that they are making money, period, right now. I think the comeback from Darby should be in this case, well, we can't show you all of our books, but here is our audited revenue since January 1st.
Yeah.
And month by month, and show the revenue side and show the losses in revenue and say, this is why we're asking you to do this. Because that's the part that's relevant. The rest of it is honestly not relevant to this situation. And that's going to be the reluctance on the club side to share their books with their employees, which I understand. I get that. But the revenue side is absolutely relevant. That's your argument for saying, well, we signed an agreement to pay you, and now we can't pay you. This is why. And they should show that. I think that's completely fair. That's a compromise that would seem fair to me.
Yeah, the deferred dollars would be paid back at a later date, according to
that's what the players are asking for, right?
That's what Sportsmail is saying. What the club will do. Sportsmail understands the Rams board want the squad to forego half of their pay, which would be paid back at a later date.
Okay, so it's a deferral. It's not a pay cut. So that's a better way of handling it. That makes you feel a little bit better about Darby's situation. They're not just trying to cut it, period. But still, that's still substantial.
Darby's players are prepared to withdraw their counteroffer of a 25% deferral if the club failed to disclose their accounts. PFA are advising Skybet Championship players not to accept any more than a 25% deferrals.
Yeah, I get it, but I also think that the more that you try to do those kinds of things where you're telling players, well, don't take a bigger cut than that, you're going to end up in a worse position than you could have been before. I just worry that trying to do something like that across the board, some clubs are in a different position, and some clubs, especially when you get into the championship, are going to have more of a deferral or a cut or whatever because they're already in a worse situation. And this is what it comes back to. I mean, if you want to say, well, they put themselves in that situation, I don't feel sorry for them, they didn't run their club right, all that's true. But do you gain by the club going away? Do you gain by that team disappearing? Because there's not a whole bunch of teams below them that are going to take those spots. Like, that's the problem, is it's not like you have just a bunch of teams sitting by the side saying, yeah, we'll move up. Yeah, we can handle that. Yep, everything's fine. And we're going to pay the same amount, too. Yeah, we're going to do all that. No. You're going to... What's the classic phrase? Cut your nose off to spite your face?
Yes.
That's where you're kind of at with some of this. The reality is the reality. The revenue is not there. And for teams that were already in a bad spot to now be losing this amount of revenue that they reasonably expected, because they expected to have games. They expected to have people in the building. Now it's zero. Nobody expected that. Like, that's a reality. And that's going to have consequences. And they need to work together. The players and the clubs need to work together to figure that out. Because you do have contracts, but you also have the reality of the money not coming in and clubs not being able to pay out those contracts. It's where you're going to get here shortly.
And you're discussing the new reality. Tom Colomas from the Daily Mail, going a step below the championship. some League One and League Two clubs are looking back to how things were in the 1950s and would like the lower leagues regionalized and have salary caps. So everything.
I think that's where you're going to get.
Yeah.
In some countries, anyway. I mean, Germany already does that below the second division. They're already regionalized. This is going to create separation. You know, is a Premier League club going to go under because of this? They shouldn't. I don't think any will. But there are a few you're probably looking at sideways. Championship clubs, you're going to have some that are not going to be able to survive this in a normal sense. Now, maybe they're surviving it better than teams below them, so they stay by default. But, you know, third and fourth division, League One and League Two, you probably will need to regionalize it and just combine it. I mean, that's the type of stuff you're going to have to talk about. You know, does it really make sense to have a third division and a fourth division coming out of this? Now, you can get back there, but coming out of this, the next season, do you maybe just need to have a combined, regionalized system below the championship? And this is in England, where you would expect there to be a pretty good amount of money to work with. You might need to do that. Other countries might need to be even more drastic. These are all possibilities that are on the table after all this.
One of the chairman's, Fleetwood Town's Andy Pilley, was asked about it. And having a North and a South division was a formation that England had from, according to the article, 1921 to 1958. Pilley was asked about it, and he says, much as I like Gillingham, I don't like going there on a Tuesday night or Portsmouth on a Tuesday night. Fleetwood would face a 568-mile round trip for a game at Portsmouth and only 2 miles less for something at Gillingham. So you're looking 280-something miles each way. That's Nashville and back, pretty much. Or Tallahassee and back, if you're looking at it from an Atlanta perspective.
Right.
And he says, it makes no sense. It's worth considering a regionalized League One and League Two.
I think it makes more sense to consider a regionalized League 1/2 is where you could be. Because you're not going to have two separate leagues if you regionalize it. There's no point. I mean, you already have 20 teams in those leagues, or 24, I can't remember. You're not going to have two 12-team leagues. You're going to have to combine the two, and if there's any conference teams that are in a position to come up into one of those regionalized leagues, they might come up and support, because you're potentially going to have some teams that disappear. Mm-hmm. I don't think every team in League One and League Two is going to stay in this combined League One, League Two situation coming out of this. I think some are going to have to reorganize and start again, and they're going to lose their spot. So instead of 40 teams that you're talking about, you might end up having two regionalized leagues of 16 or 18. I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting, but the fact that is being mentioned now by teams below the championship, that should tell you what the reality is starting to look like.
And the National League, which is, that's the fifth tier, they've voted to cancel the season, and the team that was at the top of the National League is the one that would have been promoted to League Two, and that is a team that has not been a part of the top four leagues in over 50 years, and they're missing out on that opportunity.
They're missing out.
That's where we are right now.
Being promoted.
They're not being promoted to League Two,
right?
As of right now, yeah.
Right.
So that's 90% of the clubs voted to end the season with immediate effect.
Yeah.
Barrow, who was 4 points clear, And now as the league's trying to figure out what would happen, Barrow would be the team that would be promoted to League Two.
Okay.
But as of right now.
Okay, I don't understand what you're saying as of right now. Like they stopped the leagues and they're getting promoted.
No, apparently. Yet to determine. National League has stopped the season, according to the article. The National League has yet to determine how to finish the season. They've stopped it.
Oh, okay.
Or so solving promotions and relegations.
Okay. You were confusing me like they were going to not have promotion. Like, no, that's not going to happen. That's, and again, lawsuits. They just haven't determined if they're going to finish. The season's suspended like it is everywhere else, right? That's
immediately ended. Voted to end the season. National League, North and South divisions.
Okay, John, you're really confusing me here. Let me try to get this straight here, because I think anybody else listening is going to be in the same boat as me.
Right.
The National League, which is below the 4th division in England.
Yes.
Have they stopped the season for good?
Voted to immediately end the 1920 season.
So it is over.
All remaining fixtures have been canceled.
So Barrow won the league.
4 points clear.
So they won. No, that has nothing to do with 4 points clear. There's no more games. They won the league.
As of right now, yeah.
What is the as of right now? There's no league and there's no more games.
Correct.
But what is the as of right now? I don't understand. This makes no sense. If there's no more games, if the league is done, then Barrow is your champion.
Yes, but the National League, according to this article, has yet to determine how to finish the season to solve promotions and relegations.
But there's no more games.
Correct.
Are they dense? Like, there's no more game. They canceled all the games. So your season is over.
Yep. Reading from James Dutton from the Daily Mail.
And you wonder why people are losing their minds about this nonsense. If you're not playing the rest of the schedule out, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a champion. So they're getting promoted. That's what every other league in the planet that's talked about doing this has said. Why are they trying to... What are they even doing? Like, what are they talking about doing? Are they going to have a playoff? Are they going to have a Tiddlywinks competition? Are they going to do it on FIFA? Like, what in the world is this? This makes no sense, this article.
I know. Continuing the read from Dutton, no side across the 3 divisions in the National League is yet guaranteed promotion.
Then what are they guaranteed? Why'd you stop it? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm. It is hoped that the cancellation, reading from the article, will allow clubs to make business decisions with greater clarity as soon as possible.
So, yeah, we're going to stop the season, and guys, you're 4 points clear, and you're the champions because there's no more games, but we're not promoting you yet. But we want you to be able to, have clarity with your business decisions. You might be promoted, but you might not, because we might just decide to flip a coin or play, rock, paper, scissors, or who knows. So, yeah, have fun with your clarity.
Yeah, and you might be going to League Two next year, but you might not.
I think there's something Weasley going on.
About right.
Like, that doesn't even make any sense. This is the problem, and we're seeing it in a whole lot more places than professional soccer and league structure. That's for sure. But people have got to be clear with their decision making and what they say and what they do right now, because they are confusing people and they are making things worse with their confusion, and they're not thinking clearly, and they're just flailing around like they're drunk at 2 a.m. at the college bar. You're going to stop the season, then that means you're going to have promotion. You don't want to have relegation because it's not fair because you stopped the season. Don't have relegation and have a plan. Don't say you're stopping the season and not have a plan. You want clarity? You don't have any clarity. Your clarity ended when you decided to order 3 more shots at last call. Stop the nonsense and just get this stuff organized with a plan. Do you know when you could play again? No, you don't. That's fine. But do you know enough to make the decision, are you going to stop the season or are you going to keep it going? If you stop it, it means X, it means Y, it means Z. Those are things that you can do. If you're going to vote to stop the season, but you're not going to say what's going to happen about promotion, even and relegation, then you're an idiot. You're an idiot and you shouldn't be in your job. Because how are you even putting... I would be pulling a Dundee FC if I'm in this case. Because how can I vote for something if I don't know what it means? Did the teams have a vote to say, we're done, we're the season's over? But we don't know what that actually means. Is this the United States Congress? Where they're voting for things that they don't even know what's actually in it.
Read the bill.
They don't. They just voted for something. But it doesn't mean anything, except they're not playing any more games.
I mean, I'd like to know what the 10%ers were in the National League voting, since nearly 90% of the clubs voted to end the season with immediate effect. Was Barrow one of the ones who could have been promoted to League Two?
But no, that's not a could have. They should be. They are the first place team with no more games.
Right. No, but I'm saying had the season been finished. Is not. No, I was pulling the ending the season with immediate effect out. But was Barrow one of the 10%ers that voted no to end the season with immediate effect?
Why would they? Because they're in first. There's no reason why they should vote no. They would be stupid to vote no. You get a vote in front of you to say there's no more games and you're in first place. So figure it out, Scrappy. Why would you vote no?
If the promotion relegation aspect, which we're stumbling upon here, was still in play, that's what I was getting at.
But this is I give up. There's got to be more information on this, because this makes zero sense that you would have a vote to say we're going to stop the season, but we don't know what that actually means, except there's not going to be no more games.
Mm-hmm.
One, why would you have that vote? Two, why would you actually vote? And what is the plan going forward? How did this vote happen? Because this vote sounds dumber than the one in Scotland, because at least the one in Scotland, things were spelled out when it came to these sorts of things. Why would you say we're not going to finish the season, but we don't know what that actually means in terms of the promotion side of it? Because that is kind of an important element.
Yes. National League Chief Executive Officer Michael Tattersall, with almost 90% of responses returned, it is evident a clear majority of clubs are in favor, including a majority of clubs in each of the National League, North and South divisions. In the knowledge that the ordinary resolution is passed, the league's board has chosen to communicate the decision now and before the last few responses are received, which will not change the outcome, to enable clubs to make business decisions with greater clarity as soon as possible. Clubs yet to respond still have an opportunity to do so. The league wishes to include as many preferences as possible before the final voting result is declared.
Okay, so now they have released a voting amount without all the votes in, which is, again, stupid. There's not going to be a Dundee FC situation where one vote's going to change it, and that's probably why they said it, since it's 90%.
Right.
You do have a number of games difference between teams, and let's see if that affects the top, because that would answer the question that I've been screaming about if Barrow's 4 points clear, then they're 4 points clear, and it doesn't matter. They're the champions, and they'd get promoted unless there's a playoff structure for them to get promoted. These are things that, like, I don't know the National League table. When you say that they're in 4 points clear, I'm thinking, okay, well, they're the champs, they get promoted. What's the hang up here? The promotion relegation thing is a huge issue that they've got to get figured out, and that's one of the major issues at this point. So Barrow's director, Levi Gill, believes the decision to end the regular season is the right one, even though promotion now hangs in the balance. This is the part I don't know why the promotion hangs in the balance. The National League have said they will present options for how to finish the campaign, but Gill says there's been no clarity over what or how many choices they are likely to be given. So they voted, and this is why I do not understand why they had this vote. They voted to scrap the games that are left. They're calling it a decision to end the regular season. Okay. Basically what they did is they voted to say they're not going to play any more games in the 1920 season. They didn't actually vote to end it. They have to figure out what this means. So Levi Gill from Barrow, their director, said, obviously, we are very strongly against voiding the season. Well, duh. But apart from that, it is impossible to know what to do without seeing the choices. It could be complete the table by points per game average, give final positions out on current standings or playoffs. I would prefer a straight yes or no option, but I don't know if that is what we will get. So they're going to have another vote. And they hoped it would be by the end of the month, but that deadline is tight, according to Levi Gill. There's not an issue in terms of the inspection process to get promoted into the football league for Barrow. They've already passed that. They have to put a roof over the visitor section. That's on hold at the moment. They're committed to do it. They can restart that, but they haven't done it yet because they obviously don't want to spend the money if they're not going to get promoted. They've been out of the football league for 48 years. Now, yes. Notts County, which is in their first season of non-league football ever, they were third in the table at the time of suspension. Their board of directors issued a statement, said, we would like to place on record our disappointment that the season has been brought to a premature end. While we appreciate the views of other clubs and respect the overall outcome of this vote as a representation of opinion across the three divisions, our stance has always been that the National League should operate in tandem with the EFL due to the intrinsic link between the two leagues. We were therefore opposed to this vote being imposed, particularly as there were no clear indication of what the next steps would be in terms of deciding the conclusion of the season, including end-of-season playoffs and matters concerning promotion and relegation. Please look up how promotion happens from the National League to the Football League.
That's what I'm looking up.
Okay. Knott's added that they've written to the National League with suggestions on what this means. Players will continue to train remotely to make sure we're ready to resume our push for promotion if we're given the opportunity we feel we are and others deserve. This is where I'm baffled because they voted to not play any more regular season games. So what is the push for promotion?
2 up, 2 down is the mix.
It's 2 up, 2 down from the National League to the Football
League.
League.
2. Yeah, to League 2, yes.
Okay, so I think it fairly recently it was 1 up, 1 down. So now it's 2 up, 2 down. You have to pass inspection to go up. So that's part of it. Now, I don't know in the case that you don't pass inspection to go up if you just only have 1 go up or if the next team gets the opportunity. I think it's just 1 goes up. I think they've always kept that approval process in there as a very important part of it. So it's 2 up, 2 down, but is the 2 up just the top 2 teams or is there a playoff structure?
There is a playoff structure this year because of the vacant place created by Bury's expulsion.
So that would mean it was 3 up this year.
It's like 1 from League 2. All right, here's what Sky says. National League Board will decide on the feasibility of continuing to hold the playoffs to decide promotion from each of its 3 divisions, and I'm guessing that's across the board. However, there is no time scale for this, and they will seek help and assistance from the clubs in making the final decision. The National League want the 2 up, 2 down policy into League 2 to remain to address the vacant place created by Bury's expulsion. The playoffs would offer the opportunity to allow 2 clubs to be promoted into the EFL.
Okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. I think it is typically 1 up, one down.
And this year, because of Bury's expulsion, it's 2.
Yes, I think that's why it's 2 up, 2 down. Because Bury's down, so somebody's got to come up and replace them. So it sounds like there is a playoff situation, and looking at, I'm looking at the table right now on Sky, and they've got 2 through 7 separated out.
So Barrow gets in as your 1, and
Yes.
2 through 7 have your playoff?
Yeah, which is kind of a weird structure for it, but okay. Problem is, you don't have the same number of games played, so you're going to have to go to points per game if that's the way you go. I mean, for example, Harrogate Town, Yeovil Town, Bournemouth, Halifax have all played 37. Notts County's played 38. Stockport County's played 39. They're in the last spot on straight points, but Solihull Moors has played 1 less game than Stockport County, and they're 3 points back, as is Woking, who is 3 points back. Hartlepool United has played the same number of games as Stockport County. They're 3 points back, so you can rule them out of it. It's a mess. This is why people have to be clear in when they have a vote what you're actually voting for, because it was asinine to have a vote to begin with without tying in what it meant. Absolutely asinine to do it. So now you've done it, and you said you're not going to have the rest of the regular season games, but you don't know what that actually means. That's what's so messed up about it. I'm just blown away. So, okay. The way the playoffs would go, the way it's structured. So right now, Barrow would go up in the automatic spot.
Yeah.
2 and 3 go into the semifinals. They go straight to the semis. 4 through 7 have a quarterfinal. So 4 plays 7, 5 plays 6. Those winners go into the semis with 2 and 3, and then you have a playoff final. That's the way it's structured.
Wow.
And, yeah. Then you have relegation, which would see 3 go down the way it was structured coming in. 3 went down no matter what, and then the 21st team had a possible relegation, and that is down to the Bury expulsion. So ideally, or not ideally, but normally 4 would go down.
Right.
But because of the Bury situation, only 3 might go down in this case. So, you voted to not finish the season out, but you didn't vote as to what that actually meant. So you've created even more confusion than you needed to create, which you already had confusion. Good job, England. You've now passed Scotland on the stupid scale of football management.
Yeah. That was... that this is just it makes your head hurt. That's the only way that I can phrase it, really.
Absolutely pathetic.
Yeah, that too.
Dude, slow down. Check yourself. Stop the insanity.
Is this thing on?
No, it's
React
on.
to me.
They voted.
Solihull Moors, Notts County, Dagenham and Redbridge, Boreham Wood. Hello.
They voted for something. They voted to not play any more games.
But, and that's a big ass but, you don't know what that means.
It shouldn't be this complicated, y'all. It really should not be this complicated with votes and with nonsense and with voiding seasons and with not voiding seasons and with voting irregularities in Scotland, and all of this. It really shouldn't be this complicated. Obviously, the whole situation sucks, and everybody's having to figure it out as you go. But when you make it more complicated by not figuring anything out, really, just adding another layer of stupid on top of complicated situation to begin with, you're making it more difficult for yourself, and you're confusing fans. And look, you're going to need these fans. You're going to need these people to come back, and you're making it harder for them to understand what you're doing. It's just mind-blowing that people in these positions would do that. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So we will see what they do. We have another dumb league to keep an eye on. Maybe they'll figure out what their vote actually meant here at some point. But yeah, I'm really frustrated because you've got people that are sitting at home right now who, these clubs, do you have, hundreds of thousands of people wondering to see what happens to Barrow? No, you don't. But you have a number of people who really do care about what happens in this. You have a team that could get back into the football league for the first time in 40-plus years, nearly 50 years. You have a team in Notts County who's trying to get back because they've never been in the situation they're in. And these things matter to people. And especially now when, look, people's lives are a mess all the way around. And they want something to hold on to. They want something to be excited about. They want something to cling on to. And you're making it harder for them to understand what's happening. You're not doing your job. You're flat out, if you're running the football league in this case, if you're running the National League in this case, by not being on the same page, by not having the stuff organized, by not trying to keep things somewhat consistent, you are not doing your job. You are doing a disservice to your league. You're doing a disservice to the game. And more importantly, you're doing a disservice to the people that are, paying your salary. And I'm not talking about the boss or the owners. I'm talking about the fans. This stuff is hard, but you're making it harder and more complicated for anybody to have an idea as to what's going on, including the clubs themselves. It's got to stop. None of this is going to be perfect. There's no perfect solution to any of it. I mean, forget it. You're going to have an argument if you finish the season and you have to play in neutral sites because a team might have had a big game scheduled to be at home and now they don't get that home and field advantage. You're going to have something. I think everybody understands that. It's not perfect. There's no way it can be perfect. But you can work together to find the best way forward. And people have to try to do that. That's where we're at right now in all of this. So, I don't know. See what happens.
The boss has returned from the shopping expedition with the store's generic version of the drink of choice here in Office HD.
Okay.
I have sampled it.
Yeah.
And my taste buds might be tweaked considering that I've started with the original this morning and then chased it with the generic.
Yeah.
And honestly, it just tastes like a flatter version of the original.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Doesn't excite me.
Yeah. So I'm blown away again by Maradona in Teise Sports, the 10x10, because there's 1 hour of this that I have not seen. And now they're pulling out a clip from 1981, a concert in Buenos Aires, I'm assuming, of Eddie Grant. Do you remember
like
what
Electric
song
Avenue Eddie Grant?
Yes, there you go, Electric Avenue Eddie Grant. And he saw Maradona in the crowd and started pointing at him, and then brought Maradona up on stage. He did not do the dance, but he brought Maradona up on stage. They pulled that out of the archives on Teise because this is nuts.
There's nothing wrong with that, though.
No, there's not. That's just not what I expected to see on my television.
The Premier League is recruiting cardiologists to investigate effects of coronavirus on players ahead of a potential return to football.
Okay.
Cardiologists will file a report on that effect. The Premier League has drafted a group amid concerns over the harm a potential return to football may cause. The Daily Mail understands that the government have also asked to be informed of the findings, which are part of the competition's wide-ranging study into the safety of restarting the suspended season. Fears that an early return could trigger health issues have been raised, and the top flight, as the article just zooms away from me, the top flight wants to leave no stone unturned when exploring the possibility of a return to action. This comes from Mike Keegan over at the Daily Mail.
Yeah, this is kind of a giant duh. You're not going to just say that, we can play games, so yeah, we're going to play tomorrow. You have to have a preseason of sorts, and yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of understood, so not really surprised by that. I don't know if it was you or me, but Kefsey has checked us this morning.
Uh-oh.
Hartlepool is the correct pronunciation.
Hartlepool, and Jeff Stelling, I think, from Sky, is on their board.
Okay.
So
but it is pronounced Hartlepool. I think
Hartlepool.
one of us mispronounced it. It could have been me.
Okay. Hartlepool.
Okay. Thank you, Kefsey.
Yes. Thank you, Kefsey.
I'm not
Chris
up on my
Hutchison,
smaller English clubs on pronunciation.
I think I might actually have a Hartlepool kit as a part of my
there you go.
as a part of my stash. Chris Hutchison is saying, just mix a caffeine pool with some Gatorade and mineral water as an alternative for
a caffeine pill.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, a caffeine pool? You're going to jump into a pool of caffeine now? I don't even know how that works.
Oh, that'd be great. Some mornings that'd be fantastic.
That would not be. That'd be gross.
Mix a caffeine pill with Gatorade and mineral water.
Yeah. Just start doing no-dose, John.
Nah, that kept me up for like 3 days at a time because I used to do that when I was doing like exams and
Cut
stuff.
them in half. Cut them in half and then dissolve them in Gatorade.
Completely and totally my body would overreact to those kinds of things.
Okay. Well.
Would go to the wall.
Oh, well, I don't know. I got nothing. You have to drink imitation Mountain Dew then.
No, when round 2 comes, I still have the original here. I have plenty of the original from the tour yesterday when I went and did the walk of the 2 miles.
Okay. We'll see how long that lasts. Next week you'll be saying, I don't have any Mountain Dew.
Pretty much.
I'm angry.
Plans to get Spanish football restarted in June are likely to face opposition from the country's footballers. The Players Union, AFE, are due to meet, having been frozen out of the 8-hour meeting at the weekend between the Spanish Government Sports Council and the Spanish Football Federation and La Liga.
So they had a government meeting about restarting the game, and they didn't invite the players to be part of that.
Meeting was designed to bring together La Liga and the Federation. After weeks of public bickering between the two, worked with a joint statement issued promising greater collaboration, but now the governing bodies have to get players on board with the plan to restart the season on June 6th.
Really? They've got to get the players on board. Well, duh, the players are the ones who are actually playing. Maybe they should have had them on board from the first start of this. This is just dumbness.
Players are concerned, this is from the article once again in the Daily Mail, not just about the possibility of catching the virus if they start playing again. There's also disquiet regards as yet unfinalized plans to make them stay in quarantine with teammates away from their friends and families while the season is played out.
Again, you probably should have talked to the players about that part of it. I mean, look, you're going to have to figure out something if you're going to play. And if you're going to get paid, you're going to have to figure out something to play. All that is, yes, we're all on the same page there. But when you're creating plans that would involve the players being in the bio bubble, essentially, to play these games for you, you might want to talk to them about what it means to be in the bubble. That's kind of important.
Nah.
So you have all these meetings, and then you go back and say, "Yeah, this is what we're going to do. Go at it. Yeah, you're going to do this."
Hey, players, here's what we're going to do.
Do you think that maybe you might have been able to skip a step by having the players on board to begin with and say, "Look, these are the options we have. This is what we can do to finish the season and pay you. This is what we have. What sounds good to you? What ideas do you have?"
Nah.
Maybe you could have skipped some steps by actually opening your mouth and having a conversation. Crazy, I know.
When you go out and you make your grocery runs and you're stocking your shelves, what is the social distancing? How is social distancing when you go out and about?
I social distance. I don't worry about anybody else. I stay away from as many people as possible.
Okay.
If I go to CVS, well, CVS is actually pretty good. CVS, and the closest one to me anyway, they limit it to 40 people in the store at a time, and they have had somebody at the door to make sure that they're keeping their numbers right. And that's the only time I've seen this so far. I haven't been a bunch of places, so I don't have a ton of places to judge it from, but that's the only one that I've seen do it. They have, in terms of the pharmacy area, they have it very clearly marked, the 6 feet apart. I think they probably went a little on the conservative side of what 6 feet is, which is fine by me. When I'm in a store like that and it's small, if I see somebody on an aisle, I don't go down that aisle. I will go around. I am making sure, I'm paying attention to what's around me and I'm staying away from people. The grocery store is a little bit harder to do that because there's some spots where it's just difficult, but still, I'm the one who's focused on it. It's the same way I drive. Like, I don't trust anybody, so now my defensive driving has just become defensive shopping. Like, I don't trust anybody, so I just stay away.
Right there with you.
I keep distance. I get a big cart, and usually when I'd go to the store, because I usually make a bunch of small trips instead of one big trip a week, and I'd use a basket or sometimes the little small buggy. I use the big buggy now because I use it as a bridge. Stay away from me. I have a buggy. When I'm in line and people have tried to crowd up, I will get in front of the buggy and use it as a barrier. Like, yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about it because I can't trust anybody else to.
When you leave just to get fresh air from Longshoe HQ, pretty much the same. If somebody's coming at you, same side of the road,
it's been fine. People have kept their distance away. I mean, walking Gwen in the neighborhood around the complex, people are not coming up to her because people are not petting other people's dogs right now. I mean, that's a fact. And Gwen loves to be petted, and especially the people she knows. So, we've done that, and it's say hey from a distance, and that's what it's been. I haven't been walking through a neighborhood where a bunch of people have been walking because I haven't wanted to be in that situation.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, that's just I've all, like I said, like, I drive that way. I never did like a defensive driving course, but I've been told that I drive that way, and basically I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin in the sense that I don't trust anybody.
DTA. Yep.
I don't trust them to drive correctly. I don't trust them to follow social distancing. So I'm going to follow it to the T to make sure that, I have space between me and whoever else is around.
So you remember a couple weeks ago when we were discussing Jose Mourinho and Tottenham Hotspur and Tanguy Ndombele and people in a park?
Yeah.
Serge Aurier and Moussa Sissoko, who also play for Spurs, disregarded social distancing regulations in a training video that Aurier uploaded and then deleted with him and Sissoko.
This is stuff that, look, it's I don't know what the best way with all this is anymore. because, all right, these are two athletes who are going to be playing together, correct?
Yes.
They're going to be sharing a locker room. They're going to be, sharing a training pitch. They're going to be playing together. Like, where is the step and how do you show it? Because my understanding here would be, and maybe I'm wrong, I would assume that Tottenham's players have been tested. I think most teams have had their players tested at this point. I don't know if they have only tested, cases that they had suspicions about, or if they've just tested everybody. I think some teams have and some teams haven't. I don't know for sure. They don't have to make it public. But if, and this is the hard part about all this, right? If they've both been tested and they're both good to go and they're both training, and if they are both following social distancing in their normal lives, then a training video with the two of them should be okay, right? It's a lot of ifs, but
in theory,
right?
In theory, yes.
I don't even think it's in theory. Like, if all that's true, then yeah, because, and this is then the next step. If you are going to, in a few weeks, train in small groups, well, then what's the difference? Like, really, where is the line? I don't know if they've been tested. I don't know if they're following social distancing in general in their normal lives. We don't know any of that. There's no way we can. But you would have to assume it if they are trying to get back to action and trying to get back to playing. So it's, in some ways, it's a little bit maybe of overkill in terms of people, because I'm sure the video got posted and I'm sure everybody flipped out and started calling names and started going crazy. And that's why it was pulled, correct?
It just says that they were going through, the video says they were going through their paces on social media before deleting the videos. The pair were forced to apologize after ignoring the government's lockdown regulations, stating that exercise is only allowed with people from your own household as they do not live together.
That's the difference. Okay. Now that's a whole situation. That's it. That's fine. Now that is absolutely correct. Because they have made the regulation to that degree. Then yeah, they're breaking the government's regulation. Then yes, you should take it down. You shouldn't have posted it to begin with. When that is not the regulation, then it's a different conversation. Then we're back to what I was just saying. But with that being the regulation, then yeah, they were stupid to post it. If you're going to break the government's regulation, go for it, but don't post it.
Performing running drills, sitting alongside each other. They made a joint statement apologizing. Unlikely to be fined, but a Spurs spokesman said that we shall be speaking to both players involved, end quote.
Oh, yeah. The Spurs spokesman needs to slap him down and say, are you really this stupid? like I know you're training. I know you're working together to train, and we appreciate that as a football club because we'd like to hit the ground running when we get to play again. But don't be so stupid. You didn't need to post that.
So that was our most recent instance with Spurs in trouble here on the show.
Yeah. Spurs.
I wish you could just shut your big yapper.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. Do you want to tease what's going on today at 4?
Yeah, we did earlier. We'll do it again. Twitch.tv/soccer down here. Watch along with Stephen Glass of Atlanta United 2. It is the match in Florida last year against the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And we've done watch-alongs before on Twitch, and if you guys have joined us before, the match will be on twitch.tv/soccer down here. You can watch it there, but you can also hear from us and Glassy about the game. You can ask questions, and he'll tell us a little bit about how he sees the game as a manager, things he'll tell players at certain points in the match, things he'll talk to players about afterwards. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think we'll all learn a good bit. So 4 o'clock, twitch.tv/soccer down here.
Did you hear about this story about the Argentine football footballers who were stranded in the Frankfurt airport?
No, I did not.
3 Argentine footballers, Leonardo Gil, Sergio Vitor, and Christian Huanca, who all play in Saudi Arabia, were supposed to fly back to Buenos Aires via Sao Paulo, but could not fly. They've been stranded in Frankfurt's airport for 5 days, trying to make it back home. They play in the top flight in Saudi Arabia, had received special dispensation to get back home. But given that there's a travel ban between Brazil and Argentina, a permit was needed to allow their private flight between the two South American nations. The permit, which can only be used by the Argentine National Flight Authority in conjunction with the government and Ministry of Health, did not arrive in time before leaving Germany, and as a result, they were not allowed to board their flight. They've now been stranded in the airport for 5 days.
What was the movie about? I want to say it was Tom Hanks.
The Terminal?
Yes.
The Terminal?
Yes. Is that what this is turning into?
Pretty much.
I mean, they're not people without a country, at least. Like, it's not that situation, but they can't get anywhere.
Yeah. They spoke to Hill told Bild, "We knocked on all the doors. It's a shame empty planes fly to Buenos Aires to collect non-Argentines. We don't understand why the government's leaving us behind as Argentines. Juanca is traveling with his wife, 2 daughters, and mother, who have all at least been able to find a hotel room. According to Juanca, we found only 2 rooms, which we gave to the daughters of Chino Juanca and the mother, who's a person at risk at the airport. We have to sleep in the airport. There's no one here at the airport."
Oh, man. This is the stuff, again, it's just, like, details. Can we not get this sorted out? This shouldn't be this complicated. It really shouldn't be this complicated. Other news out of Spain, the government, this is according to sport.es, the Spanish government has unofficially informed Javier Tebas, who's the president of the league structure in Spain, that public access to stadiums will not be allowed until 2021. So that doesn't mean anything about how you finish the season necessarily, but that will obviously mean big-time economic losses to the teams. And Tebas has urged the teams to tighten their belts. He said, and this is translated, "This is what I've been able to save from the royal decree. I am not going to make evaluations." He said the teams themselves have to adopt measures to figure out how to handle this and go forward. But that's the first time I've seen, it's not official, it is an unofficial communication from the government to the league that spectators would not be allowed until 2021. You know, we've heard speculation of that, even in this country, but we've not heard anything official. This is the most official we've heard, even though it is still unofficial. But it is starting to come out that Spanish football won't have fans until 21, and that is going to complicate a lot of situations for a lot of clubs.
Yeah. And you talk about matches behind closed doors. Apparently, the Premier League is considering showing matches on free-to-air TV.
Well, yeah, that's where you're going to have to figure out
visiting.
What this looks like. There's a couple different levels to it. So, obviously, when you're talking about the top flight, TV is a much bigger picture of it and a bigger driver economically as well of what you do. If you put matches on free-to-air TV, that would help. You're going to have to do things to keep fans from being in public places. And that's the other element that makes this complicated. And I think here in this country, it'll be a little bit different. Obviously, as we well know, you're starting to get states that are opening things up. We've seen it firsthand. I think by the time that you have sports in this country, you will have some level of public interaction. It won't be like it was before, but I think you will have some degree of it, and you'll have to regulate it, and you'll have to manage it. But it sounds like, and maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong if you know differently, John, but it sounds like in England and Spain and Italy and France and Germany, you could have professional sports behind closed doors before you have what we expect to have here, with the public not everything being completely open for business, but I mean, we're expected to have some restaurants open here very shortly. Bars not, but restaurants, yes. It sounds like in England they're trying to mitigate people trying to go out and get together to watch matches together by making it available to everybody instead, without any issues with cable TV or satellite TV or any of that.
Yes, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make sure that you don't have all of the groups where you could be running risks and things like that. And so it's something that the Culture Secretary, Oliver Dowden, has been trying to figure out as a part of this. Dowden revealed to the Digital Culture, Media, and Sport Committee that he's held talks with the Premier League about broadcasting matches in a bid to prevent fans from visiting friends with subscription channels to watch them.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's even more detailed. Like I'm saying, I think by the time we have sports in this country, you're not going to have it to that degree of lockdown. In England, it sounds like they're preparing for sports coming back before you have the easing of that level of restriction.
Right.
So it's a different conversation than I think we'll have here, but yeah. What I look at is when you're looking at the lower division teams, let's say League One and League Two, and let's say they decide to finish out the football league schedule because they need to for whatever reason. These games you don't have on national TV, and we've seen some reports that they would put them on some kind of TV for everybody to see. I wonder if they would try, and I don't know if you could do it. I don't know what the TV situations are in England. I know in Scotland, for example, you have Red TV for Aberdeen, and for Red TV, you can watch any game that Aberdeen plays, home and away. Right. They will put the away commentary for their team's video subscription on the Aberdeen one when it's away. I think. I know they have, at least in some cases. I don't know if they do for every case. Maybe they send their announcers sometimes. I wonder if they would do something like that to try to recoup some of the cost. The leagues would be smart to allow it for the lower divisions. If there's not a national TV contract where every game goes into a national bucket, or if there's only certain games that go into a national bucket, every other game should be available for teams to sell on a pay-per-view structure and do a subscription structure where obviously you're going to save more money because that's where things are headed. We've seen it with WWE, for example, where fans are not buying pay-per-views through WWE Network. They're subscribing to the WWE Network. And they've found, I think in general, although maybe the numbers haven't completely matched up as the product has gone up and down in quality, they found that people subscribe and keep subscribing for the most part. In you do have fluctuation, but for the most part, people keep their subscription going. Now, if you can do that, now the question is going to be, then do you pull that back when you can start to have people in the stands?
Right.
And that's always what people worry about. But I think you've got to figure out a way in the short term to have a subscription for people to watch these games at home, because that could be a revenue source.
Right. What I've heard is that the discussions have been in all of the levels of EFL that all of the games remaining would be available either over network television, the subscription services that you like, the iLook or whatever they call it, that is attached to the leagues themselves and doled out to each individual franchise, or the franchise like you mentioned with Aberdeen through their YouTube channel. They weren't looking at the revenue stream and the source of revenue. They were looking at getting the games out there so people could have something to watch.
Yeah, you're going to have to figure out some logistics here. If you do it on national TV, then
how are you going to be able to get some money back to the clubs to try to make up for the lack of gate? You know, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, all this is figuring it out on the fly, but I just want people to, in these leagues and in these teams, to, one, try to keep their communication clear, because they're going to confuse people, and they're going to confuse people who are trying to explain it to other people. They're going to confuse their fans. They're going to confuse everything. And they've got to think clearly about all of this. You've got to drop, whatever biases, prejudices, political battles you've got going on with this nonsense. And they've got to figure out how to work together, because these clubs can't exist on their own by themselves. They have to have people to play. They have to be part of a league. The leagues have to work together, whether it's the National League and the Football League, whether it's the Football League and the Premier League, different levels of leagues. They have to work together. They have to work together with the Football Association or Federation in their country. Those people need to take some leadership in this too, because we haven't heard much of that at all. And then in Europe, you have UEFA and you have European competitions that factor into this. And everybody has to get as close to the same page as you possibly can. And the longer we take for that to happen, the more confusing it'll get, the more upset feelings that will happen, and the longer there will be arguments about stuff instead of moving forward. We can't move forward on dates because we don't know dates yet, but we can move forward on some plans and how things will look when that time comes. And that's what, the longer people sit and be petty and argue and scream at each other and stamp their fists or slam their fists into their hands and stomp their feet, the more it's going to hurt the game. And that's my biggest fear, is that as bad as the virus is going to have an effect on the game, money's lost. It's going to be lost. It's going to continue to be lost. That is an issue there's nothing you can do about. The longer people get wrapped up in the other nonsense, you're going to do more damage that didn't have to happen. That's the part that worries me about all of it. And people have got to do better. They've got to be better in these situations. If you are a league leader, you have got to communicate clearly, and you've got to have your plans well thought out. Let's have a vote to end the season, but let's not actually know what that means. Yeah, that's great job, guys. Great job. Good. Good on you. You canceled some regular season games. Yay, and now you've created another dilemma, and you've already ticked off some of your teams. Good job. Well done. That's the stuff that's got to stop through all of it. So we will see. There will be plenty more consternation on our end with all this. There will be plenty more consternation on lots of ends with all of this, and we're going to keep battling on and trying to make sense of it, and potentially lobbying for sense to be made in situations. We will do our best. We will be back at 4 o'clock.
Things. I was going to say, we got a couple things in the timeline before we go.
Oh, okay. Let's hear those real quick.
Nathan Pugh. I enjoyed the hashtag 2017 free burrito match last night. Did you?
Yes, I watched the first half of it. It went downhill from there, and I lived it. I remembered it. I did not get into the second half. That was one of the craziest games with Atlanta United that I've ever seen, because the New England Revolution seemed to be out of their gourds at kickoff. They had 2 yellows and had conceded a goal in the first 8 minutes, and they had a red card about 10 minutes later. It was nuts. They just seemed out of their minds. And the thing I'll always remember about that game was the second game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it was the first midweek game. And, we're still figuring out routines. Like now at the stadium, like I kind of have my routine of getting in there, getting into the booth, working on my notes, going out and grabbing a meal. I like to, when I have the time, sit down and eat the meal with everybody, and then head back to the booth and do whatever other stuff we have going on. But that one was the first midweek game, and I remember we were out in the cafeteria area where the lineup was announced for New England, and I always kind of have a basic idea of what I think the team will field and what the possibilities could be.
And then in this one,
this is the one that I saw the list of players come out, and I'm like, I have no idea how they're playing. This makes zero sense. And it showed because they got run off the park in the first few minutes before the red card. I mean, it made no sense, and it looked like it made no sense, and it was just one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in a game. A team lose its collective mind that fast.
Chris Hutchison and KFC, when we got into the social distancing aspect of everything, Chris Hutchison says, many of the nouveau pedestrians now need to be educated on which side of the street to walk on and how to pay attention while they're talking on their phones. Middle of the road or on the right side of the road facing away from traffic is not the way. And I ran into that yesterday, actually. I was doing my 2 miles, and individual crosses the street to go onto the sidewalk that I'm walking on. Their head is down the entire time, locked into their device, not even realizing that I was coming at them. So I had to be the one to take the evasive action, cross a 5-lane road, walk the 50 yards to the stoplight, and then cross back over.
DTA, don't trust anybody.
KFC says continue to practice safe. You ain't kidding. KFC says continue to practice safe social distancing if you have to go out, and be considerate of others by worrying about yourself, because that's what you control. Not everyone you see will do the same, and it's best to be understanding of the difficulties involved. Virtual pets to dogs. Hands up emoji.
Yeah, that's how I am with stuff. I mean, I don't expect anybody else to do it correctly, so I just make sure that I stay away from everybody. I can protect myself, and by protecting myself, I'm protecting others. That's the way I've always looked at it. It's for me, it's having gone to enough concerts in my high school and college days in general admission, crowds, and I always in a crowd like that knew who was to my left, who was to my right, who was in front of me, and who was behind me. I always knew what was around me. I obviously knew where my friends were and the people I went to the concert with, but I knew what potentially could happen around me, and I kept up with it during a show. And that's how I just act in general, because you never know what can happen in any kind of a crowd, whether they're social distancing or not. So I just want to know what the possibilities are. Always keep my head on a swivel.
Know your plan, have multiple plans, and know where the exits are.
Well, that's a whole different conversation, but yes.
And so that's a show. We'll be back at 4.
Before we go, tell everybody about our friends in Decatur.
Well, Apolinsky and Associates?
Well, of course. They are our friends in Decatur.
Yeah, AA-legal.com. Stephen Apolinsky and Associates, trial lawyers, over 30 years of experience, and over $40 million in judgments to clients in Georgia and Alabama. You can reach out to them in a couple of different ways. You can go to their live chat on the website at aa-legal.com. You can also reach out to Steve himself at steve at aa-legal.com. Drop him an email. And you can also go and give them a buzz at 404-377-9191. Personal injury lawyers, regarded as legal elite by Georgia Trend Magazine. Stephen Apolinsky and Associates, Apolinsky and Associates LLC, trial lawyers here in Georgia, proud sponsors of the SDH network and everything that we do. That's soccer down here.
Legal elite, y'all.
Legal elite. No substitute for legal elite.
Never. All right.
Jason Wright Agency.
Yes.
Well, you got to do one without the other.
Smooth.
This train wreck brought to you by
John and Imitation Mountain Dew. The Jason Wright Agency. We have a fantasy MLS league. Right now, we do not have games to talk about. When we do, Jason Wright Agency and Jason Wright, the man behind the Jason Wright Agency, he is our commissioner of the league, and he will keep you updated on who's in first, who has the best team name, what news and notes you should prepare for the upcoming week, and hopefully we'll have some of that in the weeks and months to come. But if you have any insurance needs, make sure you're following Jason Wright Agency on Facebook, Jason Wright AGEN on Twitter, and Jason will take care of you.
What he said.
You want to just wreck anything else while you're at it?
I think I've wrecked enough.
Okay. It's time to go. We'll be back with a watch along 4 o'clock, twitch.tv/soccerdown. Here, Stephen Glass will be our guest. Atlanta United 2, Tampa Bay Rowdies from the 2019 season. Until then, mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha Mountain Lightning, y'all.